the NLCS was wild. It was wild. My initial thoughts and feelings come down to holy crap, that's a lot of offense. Like unprecedented,
Mm-hmm.
I
All the
feel
way
like,
around.
amounts of offense. Just atrocious. And that leads me to believe, somewhat speculatively, but also based on the eye test and scoreboard watching and box scores, that there is some pitching problems in the National League, and there are some defensive problems in the National League, and there are some terrific offensive capabilities. So, what do you think, Brad? What's your initial impression?
I would say more pitching problems, offensive capabilities. I didn't feel like there was a lot as far as like fielding issues. Felt mostly okay.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like there were any major issues. Like there were times in the Cleveland, we'll get there in the Cleveland New York series, where it was like, "Whoa, no, you got to make that play, right?"
right.
Like Pete Alonso had a throwing error at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but it was
He
forced by
absorbed it,
good base running.
and he
It was
absorbed a
forced,
throwing error.
and he absorbed a throwing error, right? And there was
Yeah,
almost a collision on a throwing error
yeah,
in Game 6, right? Like, but the throw was made off balance, so it's kind of like that's a play that's made by a starter, but as a backup. So it's like, okay, I
right.
expect that, right? So
Yep.
I didn't feel like the there were defensive issues. Mostly, it's just there was a whole lot of offense on both sides,
Yeah.
right?
Amazing amounts. Like, for instance, game one, which was in Los Angeles, the Mets got completely shut out, and the Dodgers scored 9 runs in that game.
Guess how many home runs were hit in that game, Brig? Goose egg. That's right. There were
Goose
no
egg.
home runs on 9 runs. That's bananas.
Well, it's good base running, right? That's small ball capitalized, and
It's
you're
good
manufacturing
base
runs.
running.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Good base running, good hitting, just all around solid offensive production. Um, and I feel like that's just what we saw from the Dodgers the entire series. They
Yeah,
only shut down really one time.
yeah.
Um, the other time their pitcher got lit up. But anyway, we'll get there.
Super lit up. I thought game one was an anomaly at first. I was watching it and I thought, whatever, bag it. Let's roll over, water it down, and come back tomorrow, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much what happened. They showed up in game two, and the Mets, they didn't shut out the Dodgers, but they blew them away seven to
It was
three.
never really close. The game
Mm-mm.
was not as close as the final score showed, and we talked about that before last week. That
Yep.
the Mets answered blow for blow with like, you want to go offensive firepower? We'll go offensive firepower. Here we go.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is gonna be an offensive battle the whole way, and it really was, right? Like
Yeah, it
you
was.
moved to Game 3, and the Dodgers answered back again. Like, okay, here we go, 8-0.
Right.
It's like,
Try and hit
holy
this
smokes.
pitching one time.
Yes.
It was fabulous, and that game moved to New York, obviously, and that one and the following 2 games were in New York. Game 4 in New York, another offensive display. Mets go 2 runs. Dodgers racked up 10. Yikes! That that was bad.
That was the point where I was kind of like, okay, the Mets are in trouble. They're not dead, but they're definitely in trouble because even after the 8-0 in Game 3, I
Yeah.
didn't have the Mets dead because again, it's like, okay, are we just going back and forth? Is this how this is going to be?
Right.
But Game 3 was, I mean, obviously it put them on the brink because they took a 3-1 lead, but at the same time, though, I was kind of like,
Right.
I'm not going to write them off yet, especially after what happened in Game 5.
Game five. Game five. Mets go 12 runs. Dodgers put up 6. The whole time it was just this roller coaster of what is happening. It seemed like every time I tuned in, I thought, okay, this can't be real. We're playing in a video game simulation, or it's in London and nobody told us.
Well, so
That's how it
the thing
felt.
to me that was crazy about Game 5 was the fact that Jack Flaherty got lit up.
Yeah.
Straight up. He gave up 8 runs, and I think he went 3 plus. Yeah, looks like he just went 3. 8 runs. Sorry, it
That's
was 3
bad.
plus. It was 3 plus because the score was 8-1 after the third, and he was responsible for all 8 of those runs. So
Right.
at that point, to me, that game was over. Even though the Dodgers showed some sign of life because they have the offensive capability to pretty much always do so.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing is they did not get shut out at all during this series. The Mets got shut out twice. The Dodgers did not at all, and they scored
Right.
double figures twice is all. Even though they knocked on the door 4 times in all 4 wins.
Exactly. Exactly. They really love to score runs over there in LA, and it's a little terrifying, but we'll get into that. Game 6. Game 6 moved back to Los Angeles. Mets lost 5-10, if you didn't know. And it was a bruiser. It was a brutal game, start to finish, and you could just feel the momentum just ooze out of the New York dugout. As every inning progressed, I thought, oh man. And then I thought, oh geez. And then I thought, holy crap.
Well, so really what it was is it was 7-4 going into the 8th inning, right? And then
Yeah.
the Mets just could not get it done. They left the bases loaded a few times. That's going to kill you,
That's
right? Like,
that's a huge problem.
for sure. Let's see. I'm looking right now. In the top of the 8th, they left the bases loaded. They had a chance to tie. Left the bases loaded. Oh wait, no, sorry, not in the 8th. My bad. I misread that one.
Knock it off.
I apologize for misreading the internet. They left them loaded in the 6th.
Yeah.
They left them loaded in the 3rd. And I think it was Jesse Winker both times. No, one time was Jeff McNeil. But anyway, they left the bases loaded a few times. So they definitely had their opportunities, right?
For sure.
And then for me, it was the nail in the coffin was the bottom of the 8th inning where the Dodgers scored on a double, a sac fly, and a single. Scored 3 runs. Just manufactured them. Right? Like at that point, I was just like, they can't make that up because you're going to be going up against who they have to face. Blake Trinan, who's been pretty dang
I don't
good.
know. Yeah, exactly.
And so I was like, you're not scoring 4 runs against him.
Were you as surprised as I was to see Diaz come out to close out the 3rd or whatever it was?
Not really,
like, huh,
just because.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was they had him come out for the 4th,
Fourth,
but it was mostly because you got to keep that game close, right?
Right.
That at that point the score was 6-3, and you can't let that deficit get any bigger at that point. And you've got the top of the order coming up. You got to throw the best stuff you got right there.
That's right.
And then I thought it was interesting using Kodai Senga there in the 8th, and he just couldn't get it done.
Just didn't work.
Yeah.
Desperation moves. Once they started breaking from what I thought would have been the program, right? They stopped being able to play the game they set out to play, and they started having to play reaction. And that's why I mean, like, as every inning progressed, I just saw things go off the rails. Oh crap, what are we going to do? Let's patch it up this way. Oh, that didn't work. What are we going to do? Let's patch it up this way. It just felt like a reaction game constantly from New York, and they just couldn't pull it together despite their best efforts. And I think they were their best efforts.
Right, I think so too. I think you're right though with that reactionary, and not to say that wasn't the game plan, right? That they hadn't drawn it up and said we'll go with Diaz in this spot, but the fact that was what they had to do though,
right?
I think you're right though. That's the point where you're like you're kind of toast if you have to, if you feel like you have to go to Diaz this early, you're kind of in trouble.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So once he came in, and I was like, that's it. I don't know if this is going to work out, and it didn't. So the end. Dodgers advance to the World Series, and let's move on.
Well, hold
on.
Do you have
anything else you want to say about the NLCS?
Yeah, I actually have a question for you about this one.
Okay. All right.
So, spoilers: the Yankees clinched on the road, right?
They did.
The Dodgers clinched at home. Which would you rather do?
I would rather win. I don't care. Clinching is clinching. Nope.
And I'm not saying lose on the road so you can clinch at home,
No, yeah,
But
for
do you
sure.
think it would be better to clinch in front of your home fans or to
Yeah,
spray
yeah, of
champagne all over the
course.
visiting clubhouse?
No, no, no. You want to do it at home. That makes a. Everybody knows you want to do it at home. I don't think that's a question. I think, if it's an ideal world, if we're scripting it, then yeah, clinch at home, obviously, because
Yeah.
at one point in the Cleveland series, you could. The Cleveland fans got so quiet there at the end of Game 5 that you could hear "Let's Go Yankees" through the broadcast,
Yeah.
and it was intense. I mean, that's a big deal in a winner take all playoff game. And then all 30 of those fans or whatever it was stuck around to watch the ceremony, and they're all in their pinstripes, and it was super cool, but it did feel a little bit anticlimactic to get the trophies out and crown the MVP and things like that in Cleveland. I don't know. I feel you. Like, but I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't
Either
matter to
way,
me.
you just want to win. That doesn't
We
matter.
just want the parade. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
The parade.
Mm-hmm.
That's all anybody cares about.